What is good, YouTube? Welcome back to the airport. Welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about which team in the East is the biggest threat to the Miami Heat in a playoff series. We're going to get into each team that is currently, in my eyes, a threat slash a contender for the championship. And we're going to be talking about how the Miami Heat match up with each one of these teams. So stay tuned till the end of the video. Leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. This idea comes from Benaya Knox, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right, who asked me how the Heat would match up with the 76ers or the Bucks in the playoffs. I just decided to do a video about how the Heat would match up with all the Eastern Conference contenders in a playoff series, just because you guys can see, my take on which team is the most favorable matchup for us compared to which team is the most non-favorable matchup for us. So make sure y'all drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Right before we get into it, though, I do have to take care of some housekeeping things because I got a lot of comments in the last video. I love when you guys give me constructive criticism. I really like that. And shout out to Curtis Farley, who was pretty big on this. He said he didn't mean any disrespect, which I completely understand. Whenever you guys leave constructive criticism, I don't take it as disrespect. I kind of just take it as a sign that you guys actually care about what I'm talking about. So I love it, and I encourage as much of it as possible because that actually shows me you care about my channel, you care about me, you care about this community. So he was talking about how sometimes the videos can get disinterested because the lack of highlights in the background, all that stuff. Listen, man, I would love to have highlights in the background of the Miami Heat playing. The only reason that is not in any of my videos is because I do want to avoid copyright, and I'm not like a YouTube expert with the rules or anything like that. So I'm just trying to be on the safe side. I'm not trying to do anything that's like gonna put me in that copyright zone because I'm not experienced enough with the laws and the rules of YouTube and all that stuff. And especially like in this day and age, you see a lot of people's videos getting demonetized. So I just err on the side of caution. But if anyone has any idea of how I can get clips of Heat highlights and put them in YouTube, in my YouTube videos without getting copyrighted, feel free to hit me up on Twitter, man. It's my Twitter link is always the pinned comment. So just hit me up in my DMs on Twitter, or even in the comment section below if you guys have any idea as to how I can implement Heat highlights on my videos without getting copyrighted. So yeah, shout out to Curtis though. That was a very good comment, and I do notice that a lot from some people on videos that they ask me to put highlights, and I do want to. So I do want to get to that point, but I just need to understand a little bit more about YouTube, the laws, the rules, kind of how to game the system a little bit to see how I can put highlights in my videos without getting copyrighted. So I appreciate that though. But yeah, let's get right into it, man. So we're going to be talking about every Eastern Conference team and how the Heat match up with all of them. Every Eastern Conference contender, sorry, not every Eastern Conference team. I'd be here for 2 hours if I were to talk about all 15 teams. But we're going to be talking about, I think, 4 teams that could pose a threat to the East, to the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference. Sorry, 5 teams. That is the Milwaukee Bucks, the 76ers, the Chicago Bulls, the Boston Celtics, and the Brooklyn Nets. I think these 5 teams are, along with the Miami Heat, are consensus teams as to which teams might make noise in the playoffs in the East. Apart from that, you have the Raptors, the Hornets, the Hawks. Like, these teams are solid, but with all due respect to these teams, even the Cavs, sorry, I forgot about the Cavs. These 4 teams are solid, but with all due respect, I just think that the other 6 are on a different tier to them. So we're going to be focusing on these 6 teams, well, these 5 teams, because the Heat are one of the teams. So 5 of these teams we're going to be focusing on. And let's start off with the Brooklyn Nets because they're the lowest seeded team right now. So we're just going to go from the lowest seeded to the highest seeded team, which is the Bucks as of right now. The Brooklyn Nets, how would the Heat match up with the Brooklyn Nets in a series? We just saw the Brooklyn Nets last night have an absolutely dominant win over the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, a lot of that might have been due to adrenaline, the fact that they were trying to protect their little brother in Ben Simmons, who was getting booed a lot. But we all know the thing about Brooklyn that's going to be a big X factor for them is chemistry. Is Kyrie Irving going to be allowed to play home games in the playoffs? What is the situation with that? Because if Kyrie Irving is in and out of the lineup in a 7-game series, I don't really see Brooklyn being a big threat at all because it's very tough integrating a guy into the lineup and then game planning for a game without him the very next game. Because as we all know, home and away games, it's not like you play 4 home games and then 3 away games. you play two at home, 2 on the road, and then alternate 3 games in a 7-game series. So it's not like you're playing a stretch of 3-4 games consistently with Kyrie Irving. They're going to have to game plan for a game with him and then a game without him. So it's going to be tough for the Brooklyn Nets if Kyrie Irving is not allowed to play. So a lot of this rests on the fact that if Kyrie Irving is allowed to play home games, then it's a completely different series, because we all know what a great offensive talent he is. But yeah, that is going to be one of the biggest factors, Kyrie Irving being allowed to play home games or not. The other factor, Seth Curry has been a very underrated piece throughout his whole career, and I think he was a really good piece in that trade scenario. A lot of the attention is going to go to Kevin Durant. A lot of the attention is going to go to potentially Kyrie Irving in a 7-game series. You cannot let Seth Curry and Patty Mills be these consistent 3rd and 4th options for them. I foresee Ben Simmons being a facilitator. I don't see him doing much scoring. Probably he's going to play that Draymond Green type role, which is fine. I think they don't really need Ben Simmons to be a scorer, because they have 2 of the best scorers in NBA history on their team. So I just think that the thing about the Nets is chemistry, and defensively, I'm not sold on them. But I know that they have enough offensive talent to mess with anyone. Not only, like I said, Seth Curry, Patty Mills, the experience of Dragic in a playoff series, who knows the Heat system. You cannot get these guys rolling, man, because if you do, it's going to be a very tough series. But I think defensively, I think we match up with them better than a lot of teams do. And then offensively, I just don't see how they can stop us. I mean, Bam has given them, Bam has literally worked them in every single matchup that he's played. Again, his numbers against the Nets are ridiculous, and he's going to be the guy. It's going to be his team against the Nets, because he's the guy that they cannot stop. They don't have a single player on the roster that can stop Bam. He's too fast for Drummond. He's too physical for Aldridge. Griffin is very old now. Like, Claxton is the only guy that I can see physically being able to match up with Bam. He's young, he's athletic, he's fast, but they don't even play Claxton that much. They play Aldridge and Drummond more than Claxton, because offensively Claxton is just a lob threat. But even Claxton, I think, is way too small as far as physically for Bam. So Bam is gonna have to eat. Defensively, I only really trust Ben Simmons. Maybe KD can turn it up a notch in a playoff series. They did a very good job on Harden last night, and even Embiid. Embiid had a pretty good game as far as statistics goes, but that wasn't really, a big factor in my opinion. But it's gonna be Bam's team, man. We gotta just make sure we get the shooters open, but we give the ball to Bam, because he's gonna have to be the guy who's gonna have to eat in that series. So that's how we match up with the Nets. Those are the Nets' flaws. How we can exploit them is it's basically just Bam go to work, and make sure that you can't really stop KD and Kyrie, but just make sure that the others don't get involved, and you'll be all right. The second team we're going to be talking about, the Boston Celtics, who have been probably the hottest team in the NBA. Last 10 games, they won 8. They won 8 and lost 2. Their defense has been amazing. It's been the best defense in the NBA, if I'm not mistaken, as far as defensive rating is concerned. And since January, I don't know if it's been the best defense throughout the course of the season. But Boston, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, we all know Boston, man. We played Boston 2 years ago in the conference finals. Their identity is, give the ball to the Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and they're going to make tough shots, but they're very, very good offensively talented players. The thing about Boston that really, really, concerns me about them, not about us, because I'm not really too worried about Boston. I think we can beat them in 6. Their defense is very good, but for them, I just don't think they have enough perimeter shooting around Tatum and Brown. Who is that guy? Who is that sniper like the Heat have? I know Robinson has been up and down, but we have Robinson, we have Strus, we have Hero. Who is that perimeter shooter for Boston? Is it Derek White, who's average? Is it Grant Williams, who this season has been good, but in the playoffs, do you really trust him? Who is that guy that when Tatum and Brown are getting double teamed, or when there's a 2-3 zone, because in the 2020 playoffs, that zone really messed with Boston? Who is going to be the guy to bail them out and hit threes? Is it Marcus Smart, who's been inconsistent from 3? They don't really have a guy like that who's a reputable shooter. And Boston has always been a team, in my opinion, that has lacked a playmaker. They have lacked a true point guard to get them into, their sets, and make sure that they've been, an organized team to calm the tempo down. Tatum and Brown are not really point guards. Smart has been playing the point guard role, and he's an underrated playmaker, but he's not a natural PG, in my opinion. He's always been a combo guard to me. So that's the only thing about Boston. Their defense is very, very good, but I do think we have a very good chance of slowing them down. If we I think that the 2-3 zone is going to be big against them because they don't really have the shooting to mess with us. And we can really mess them up because of their lack of playmaking on their team. Chicago Bulls, number 4 seed right now. They've been the talk of the East since the season started. We're going to fly through this. I don't think the Bulls match up with us well at all. And we've seen this. We've played 3 games and we've beaten them handily in all 3 of these games. Granted, they have not been healthy for some of these games, but even fully healthy, the Bulls have struggled against us because DeRozan, when you send a double team at him, he doesn't know what to do. And when we sent 2 defenders, we blitzed him. He didn't know what to do. We switched everything against them. We threw a zone at them, and they tried to attack PJ Tucker on the switch, by sending Vucevic against him, but Vucevic is not nearly as aggressive as Embiid or Jokic, where he can just bully a guy down low. They don't have the perimeter shooting. They really struggle against the zone, in my opinion. And they're just inexperienced, man. I don't think they have the playoff experience that a team needs and a team requires to go, far into the playoffs. I think they're underachievers, and I think, this can be seen by their record against the top teams. I know they were not healthy, but let's be honest, is Alex Caruso really making you go 14-0 in these games? No, I don't think so. He's a factor, obviously. I'm not a casual. I know Alex Caruso is a very good role player, but I still think the philosophy of the team is the same with or without Alex Caruso. So, and Lonzo Ball. So that's that about the Bulls, man. I think I would love Chicago in a series. I would love to face Chicago in a series, in the second round or whatnot, because and I'm sure they would not like to face us. So that's the thing about the Bulls. The 76ers. I've always been a guy who hasn't been a fan. Not a fan, but hasn't been as high on the James Harden trade as a lot of other people. I said the Nets, if they get all their pieces back, I think they're winners of this trade. James Harden has consistently shown an ability to disappear in big games. I don't care what people say, like it's been a fact. I've watched every game that this guy has been in crunch time, or like a big nationally televised game that a lot of people are expecting him to do big things in, or in a playoff series when they were up 3-2 against the Warriors and Chris Paul got hurt. This guy has always been a serial underachiever, in my opinion, which is why I don't think he should even be in the conversation with the Dwayne Wade. That's disrespectful in my opinion. But he's still a very good offensive talent. Don't get me wrong. He's a really good playmaker. I think the thing about Philly that's gonna really, really hurt them is lack of perimeter shooting. Losing Seth Curry is huge, man. It's really, really big. I know they had to give something else up, but man, who are you kicking out to? Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris. I keep saying this. They're not catch and shoot guys. They're guys who like to create their own shot. Whenever you kick it out to Tobias Harris, I don't think I've ever seen him take a catch and shoot shot. It's always a one dribble pull up, a one dribble sidestep. It's never a straight catch and shoot when when the ball is being kicked out to him. Tyrese Maxey, he can make those shots obviously, but he's more effective, when you give him the ball and he creates his own shot. George Niang has had a good season, but do you trust George Niang as their best shooter in the playoffs? If George Niang is the guy that they're relying on, man, they're in trouble. Danny Green has disappeared. He's had the reputation of being a shooter, but we all know Danny Red in the 2020 playoffs was a non-factor, was getting clowned on, and he hasn't really found his form as to being a very good shooter in this league since. So they lack shooting. I do think they lack bench scoring. Shake Milton has been all right, but Shake Milton hasn't been the same Shake Milton from last year. He's dealt with some injuries. They have a very thin bench in my opinion, and that's what happens when you trade away pieces in that Ben Simmons deal. Yeah, I don't trust the Sixers' depth. I don't trust the Sixers' shooting. Apart from Matisse Thybulle, I don't really trust their defense as on the perimeter. Embiid can defend the paint, but perimeter defense, who's running off the shooters? And vice versa, if Matisse Thybulle is the guy who's guarding Duncan Robinson, who's guarding Jimmy Butler? So they got some stuff to figure out, man. I don't think it's going to be all roses for the Sixers. I think the Sixers are going to have to figure this out because they're not going to be able to get all the calls that they're getting right now in the playoffs because the officials are not going to blow the whistle as frequently. And that's the thing I'm trying to say. The Sixers fans are, they're very happy because of this honeymoon phase where they've beaten up on these bad teams. But when they played good teams, I know Harden didn't play against the Heat. But last night we saw against the Nets, they got ran out the building in a game where their fans were amped up and they should have been amped up. They were booing Ben Simmons like crazy. And we're going to have to analyze this team properly once this honeymoon phase is over for the Sixers because it's not going to be all roses for them. And last but not least, the Milwaukee Bucks, who I think is the biggest threat in the Eastern Conference of the Miami Heat. I think the Milwaukee Bucks are a really, really good team. The only thing about the Bucks, when is Brook Lopez coming back? I've not heard a single thing about Brook Lopez coming back. I think Brook Lopez is huge because if Brook Lopez does not come back, Bam Adebayo is going to have to feast, man. Because Bam Adebayo, Bobby Portis cannot stop that man. Ibaka, who's been a good defender in his prime, is now out of his prime, in my opinion. He can't stop Bam. So when is Brook Lopez coming back? Because if Brook Lopez is back, they probably should be the favorite in the East because they were just defending champions. I know they lost Tucker, but I still think their team is very, very formidable. They have length to put on Jimmy Butler. And we know that Jimmy Butler struggles against length, which is fine. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying Jimmy Butler, man, it's going to be tough. We're not going to win a championship because Jimmy struggles against length because tonight against the Cavs, he was terrible in the first half. That's fine. Every player has a weakness. It's about how the coaching staff, exploits this and make sure that, even though Jimmy Butler struggles against length, how to combat that. And that's what they did in the second half tonight. That's how you got, the comeback in the third quarter and the fourth quarter because they were able to get Jimmy Butler off Evan Mobley, all these guys when he was attacking them. And even when Jimmy Butler was was being guarded by Evan Mobley and these taller guys, they were able to get the shooters open. So it's just on the coaching staff to figure that out because I think that the Bucks are very prone to giving up threes. And it's a matter of whether these guys knock these shots down or not because, I know in the Nets series it's got to be Bam, and in the Sixers series it has to be the defense, and all these factors. But in the Bucks series, the others have to step up. The shooters that we've paid $90 million to, Duncan Robinson, is going to have to knock down some of these open shots because there are going to be a lot of open shots in this series because Jimmy Butler is going to draw a lot of attention, and it's not just bigger defenders. Wesley Matthews, I keep saying this, has done an exceptional job of guarding Jimmy Butler as well as I've seen anyone do. I don't think I've seen a player guard Jimmy Butler better than Wesley Matthews ever. But there are going to be a lot of open shots because the Bucks like to drop. They're going to put length. They're going to load up on Jimmy. They're going to make sure he doesn't shoot. They're going to do what we did to Giannis, except they do it to Jimmy. They're going to try to make sure that he's away from the paint, and they're going to try to force him as far from the free throw line and in as possible. They're going to make sure he stays at that three-point line and out. And they're going to load up on him, and they're going to make sure that, they're fine with leaving a couple of guys open like Gabe Vincent and these guys if Jimmy Butler does not get going. So these guys who we have trusted throughout the season, like Vincent, Strus, Hero, Robinson, Lowry, who are not Jimmy Butler or Bam Adebayo, are going to have to step up. And Bam is going to be huge too, because if Brook Lopez is not 100%, Bam has to go at people like they're not there. Because like I said, Bobby Portis cannot guard that man. So I think the Bucks are going to be a handful, man. I think the Bucks are very scary come playoff time. And I do think that this is probably going to be the Eastern Conference Finals is the Bucks and Heat. I'm not really scared of any other team. It's just the Bucks mainly in the Eastern Conference. But yeah, man, this is how the Heat match up with every contender in the East. The next video I'm going to be doing is probably working on a mock draft, a 2-round mock draft, because I've seen comments about that. So stay tuned for that. That'll be out in the next couple of weeks or so. But I'll be doing Heat videos as well. And yeah, make sure y'all kill that like button, subscribe, hit me up on Twitter. And yeah, I'll see y'all later as always. Peace.